along. Thanks, Nick. All right. And so with that, Deb Jennings is, as I mentioned, is our presenter. Deb, why don't you go about and introduce yourself, your PAC experience, et cetera, and then go ahead and start right on in.
Sure. Thank you, Pat. So everyone, the person behind the PTAC advancement, that's Pat Troy, who's our council advancement chair. There he is. But he's also at a troop meeting, so he's just kind of gonna, turn himself off and just kind of be in the background and let us do our thing. So hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Deb Jennings. I live in the Calumet district, where I have been involved in Cub Scouts since 2010. And also part of our council day camp team, and kind of spearheading, or kind of have made myself the #1 resource, I guess, about all these Cub Scout updates for 2024, which are very exciting. So I would love if all of you who are here, since we have a little bit of a smaller group, I want to make sure that this is worth your time. So if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself as well, and just tell me who you are, where you're from. So I'm in the Calumet district, and if you don't know anything about the Pathway to Adventure map, that's Tinley Park. Tinley Park, Orland Park, that's kind of our western, and we go all the way to the eastern, to Lansing, to the state line. So you can put that in your chat, in the chat, kind of who you are, where you're from, what your main role is, how you're connected to Cub Scouting, or you can unmute yourself and let us all know. And then I will, and then I want to know what you want to know tonight. Like, where are your questions? Where are the blanks that you need to fill in as you look forward to starting this Cub Scout year? I know if you're, a boots on the ground Cub Scout leader, you're busy right now recruiting and doing all the back to school nights and getting popcorn going. And so you're probably like, what's going on? So I want to try to fill in those gaps. So feel free to also put in the chat, like, what your questions are, what you need more information about. Because like I said, I have a whole Google slideshow that I can just go through. But if you have a question, I want to answer it. So, so please participate in the chat, or tell us who you are.
I'm Jim Shefke, and I'm a advancement chair for PAC 304 and Troop 342. I'm also the district. Let's try it again. I'm Jim Shefke. I'm the advancement chair for PAC 304 and Troop 342. I'm also Calumet District Advancement Chair.
All right. So hi, Jim, from my neck of the woods as well.
Hello from the hinterlands of the East.
Yes. From Homewood, right, Jim?
That's correct.
Awesome.
Hi, Carol Steve, TriStar District Advancement Chair.
Awesome. And Carol, what's the general geographic area of TriStar?
Morton Grove, Skokie, Park Ridge, Des Plaines.
Gotcha.
And the northern edge of Chicago.
Perfect. And we got Juanita and Rita who put their info in the chat. And then we got Martha here too. So wonderful. So what kind of, I can kind of get started on my presentation, but I also want you guys to think about, like I said, what are your questions? Where are the holes in your understanding of the Cub Scout program update? What do you want to, some of you are, district level folks, what do you need to bring back, to your people that you want to get out of tonight? I'm going to just start sharing my screen, but feel free to unmute yourself and talk, or put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just kind of, get myself going here. There we go.
How would you present this? How would you sell this to the Cub Scout den leaders and parents?
Well, selling, so any Cub Scout leader that's new and never knew the previous iteration of the program, that's just going to be easy because they don't know what the changes are. But for anyone who is continuing as a leader and has been a leader a while, what I would tell them is that everything in this update has been streamlined. It's actually going to make the den leader's job easier because, as you'll see, I'll kind of start going, Jim, and maybe you'll see what I mean. Okay. So in the last, so our council does these advancement seminars every third Thursday, if you didn't know, of every month. And so they have dedicated 3 this year to the Cub Scout program update. So we did one back in May that was like a comprehensive overview. And if you missed that one, there is a recording, and I can get the link from Pat and share it, so that you can see that was a much more comprehensive overview of all of the updates. Then tonight, we're kind of touching on a few things and your questions. And then in October, what we're going to do is, now that we've had a couple months to see how this is working, in action, right? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to emphasize? What do we need to know? So just mark those on your calendar and make sure you're sharing. The basic premise behind the update is to make it fun, easy, and simple. So these updates took place, they became effective on June 1, 2024. Because when it is more fun for Cub Scouts and their parents, that aids in retention, right? They're going to be excited to come to den meetings and PAC meetings, especially for parents too. Like if it's fun for them and easy to understand, they're going to keep coming back. And that kind of, goes into the next part. Let's see, let's move that. There we go. The simple part. So when it's easier to understand, like I said, everything's been streamlined, then again, it kind of keeps people coming back. They can understand what's going on. They can understand kind of the rationale behind everything. And then easy to deliver the program as it's designed. So I will take you into some of the resources for den leaders that can be shared with everybody. Because when it's easy to deliver, then everyone can kind of pitch in and help and be involved. So just a note on some of the online things, Scoutbook plus Internet Advancement has been in the process of changing over this last few months, if you haven't noticed. So just remind any Cub Scout leaders that if you have anything that you want to enter that was still under the old program, because the Guide to Advancement does give Cub Scout leaders some leeway to extend, the time period to achieve rank and earn advancements past the school year. All those have to be entered by August 31st. It says September 1st. So I would just do it August 31st to be safe, or August 30th, whatever the last day of the month is. And just get that, we're down to the wire with getting any old advancements in. But June 1st, the updates were launched, and anyone who did electives or other things over the summer, those can be entered starting now. The Den Leader experience is gone, and so that's no longer accessible. And all of the, well, it's accessible, but it's going away. And all of everything will just be focused on entering in Scoutbook and all of the resources on scouting.org. So what are we going to talk about tonight? So we're going to do a quick overview of the program updates. We're going to focus a lot on the changes to the Webelos and Arrow of Light program. So I'm glad to see some BSA folks, Scouts BSA folks in here, because that's really important to understand as you start kind of reaching out as troops kind of start reaching out to PACs. Discussing the common activities across ranks, which can really, really help den leaders and PAC leaders to plan common activities. And then a whole bunch of den leader resources. So I'm just gonna check the chat real quick. No, we're good. All right. So kind of an overview. If you haven't seen the overview before, why was the program changed? Four areas of improvement that the National Cub Scout Committee looked at. Number one was the Bobcat rank. It was just one set of requirements, and no matter what time, how old you were when you joined Cub Scouts, you had to do the Bobcat rank. And so, okay, it made sense for a tiger den, right? But what then happened if you had someone join in 4th grade and that scout was a Webelos? Now the den leader has to pause. What do you do with all these other scouts? Because now you have one scout that you have to do Bobcat rank with. The one set of requirements for all age levels wasn't developmentally appropriate. So they were looking at that. The next area of improvement was the adventures themselves. The adventure requirements, the topics didn't always match up over ranks. The number of electives wasn't the same, and it was just kind of disjointed. So the National Cub Scout Committee looked at that. The Webelos program, the 4th and 5th grade program, which has gone through, changes back and forth over the years, that just needed to be looked at so it could be more consistent following the pattern of the other ranks and kind of specifying the purpose of that program. And so that was looked at. And then the last area that was improved was the area of awards, because a lot of the awards were not in the Den Leader Handbook or in the Scout Handbook. And so they were out of the direct sight line of Cub Scouts, their parents, and the leaders, which led to a very, very small attachment rate, meaning a very small number of Cub Scouts earned those nationwide. So whereas, in your pack, maybe you knew about them and you always encouraged scouts to earn them and made opportunities for your scouts. That wasn't the case nationwide. And so now those have been, most of them have been made into adventures, which are part of the program overall. So those were the 4 areas of improvement. So as you can see, the core ranks now have 6 required adventures and 2 electives. So 6 and 2, it's what Cub Scouts do. And so Bobcat is now an adventure. It is a required adventure. It's a belt loop. And so at each grade level, it is suggested to be the first adventure that your den does when you start meeting back together in the fall, because it's going over things that are kind of the basics of scouting, character and leadership. And you'll notice here that of these 6 required adventures, they all focus on the aims and methods of scouting. And you can see that they all align across ranks. So for example, every rank now has a Bobcat adventure, but the requirements are different based on their age, right? Every rank has an outdoor adventure and the requirements are slightly different, but they're common enough that you could do some of these together. Like if your pack has like 1 lion and 3 tigers, you could combine them into one den and still be able to meet the requirements of all, because they are common requirements with just some, different nuances. And then 2 elective adventures and so on, right? You can see there. Everyone has those adventures. And then elective adventures 2 required to earn your rank. And so here's the electives. And at the top of the list, the ones that have the lightest background are the ones that were formerly electives for that rank. Okay, so they were just modified to fit the new program. And so those are returning electives. The middle, kind of the medium grading behind them, those are new electives for each rank. And so you'll have fun looking at those and seeing what's new for those ranks. And the bottom ones in the dark color, those are all of our range and target activities, which can only be done at a district or council event, which is staffed by qualified range masters. So those cannot be done on your own. So they're mentioned in the Cub Scout handbooks, but you will not find any requirements there because den leaders cannot do those. All right. And then just quickly looking at the adventures. So things like the Outdoor Activity Award, the World Conservation Award, the Summertime Pack Award, the Old Shooting Sports Awards. As you can see, those have all been converted into adventures. The World Conservation Award, I'll go back. You can see it. Everyone has a Champions for Nature. That's the replacement or how the World Conservation Award has transferred into ranks. And then I mentioned the range and target activities. And then you'll see, that while our council still supports the NOVA program, you'll see the NOVA patch there. NOVA several years ago, I believe about 3 years ago, was decentralized. It's no longer supported by the National Boy Scouts of America office, but our council does support the NOVA program. So if you have more questions about that, you can reach out to Pat and our advancement committee. But some adventures, science and STEM-based adventures were added to all the ranks here. Like for Lions, you'll see everyday tech. For tigers, tech all around. For wolves, computing wolves, and so on and so forth. So there were some science adventures added and stuff there. So those subject matters that are important for our scouts to learn are now part of the Adventures and Belt Loop program so that it's in front of everybody to see. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing and just check in real quick so I can see everybody. Jim, does that help you understand a little bit how kind of this streamlining and making things more
Yes, it does.
consistent across? Okay.
And it also helps knowing that these meetings have been recorded, that I can send them to my Cub Scout leaders. But I do have a question. You keep they keep referring to attachment, and I don't understand how they're using that word in these instances.
Sure. For the awards, it said like a 1.5% attachment, right?
Right.
So what that meant is that basically only about 1.5% of Cub Scouts nationwide were earning these extra awards above and beyond the Adventures and Belt Loops. So
Okay.
that's what that signifies.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Any other questions about that quick overview of the program updates before I move on? Otherwise, I'll go back to sharing my screen and we can talk about Webelos and Arrow of Light. Because that's one of the biggest changes, especially for anyone who's been around a while, to kind of wrap our minds around. Okay, there we go. All right, so Webelos and Arrow of Light. So I put a lot of words on the screen, but just to kind of confirm and reiterate that the Webelos and Arrow of Light program is no longer combined. It is now two distinct ranks, whereas before, it was kind of seen as one continuous 18-month program. You may have even used the terms Webelos 1 and Webelos 2. Those terms do not apply anymore. Webelos are now our 4th grade Cub Scouts. Webelos are Cub Scouts. And so they now fall in line with all the other Cub Scout ranks. And their focus is still on learning the skills of scouting and taking part in the Cub Scout program. And so Webelos is the designated program for 4th graders. So anyone who's in 4th grade, all until they're done with 4th grade, they are working on the Webelos program. They are not gonna, let's say they earn Webelos rank in February, they do not start Arrow of Light. They continue doing Webelos electives until the end of the school year. And then when it's the end of the school year, they are 5th graders. And when they are 5th graders, they are Arrow of Light Scouts. So the Arrow of Light program is no longer combined with the Webelos program. The purpose of Webelos is no longer to prepare Cub Scouts to join Scouts BSA. So tell your troop leaders that they should not be inviting 4th grade Webelos to any of their crossover events this fall. So as they're starting to do, as troops are starting to plan their open houses and campouts and whatever they're inviting Cub Scouts to, Webelos should no longer be invited to those. The purpose of the Arrow of Light program is to prepare those 5th graders, those Arrow of Light Scouts, to join a Scouts BSA troop. And those are the only Cub Scouts who should be visiting troops, who should be going to those very specific events that troops are trying to convince them to cross over and join their troop. All right. All right, so here's just kind of a graphic that was put together by the National Cub Scout Committee, just to kind of show what we're used to, what was before June 1. It was kind of a dual program. They shared electives and everything. And that is no longer the case. So after June 1st, which was when the new program updates took place, Webelos are the 4th grade program, Arrow of Light are the 5th grade program. And so they now have separate handbooks. The Webelos are suggested to continue to wear the blue shirt, whereas the Arrow of Light should, if possible, get the tan shirt. Again, I am not the uniform police. And I will say that my son fit in his blue shirt for a while. And so he wore his blue shirt until he no longer fit in it. And there are some kids who need a tan shirt because they don't make a blue shirt big enough for them. So you have to use your family's and your PAC's best judgment on that, right? Like It's okay. It's okay. Because once uniform, always a uniform. But that is what is recommended, that Webelos continue to wear the blue shirt and wear the Webelos colors, and that our Arrow of Light scouts wear the tan shirt with the blue loops. And there is no designated hat and neckerchief for Arrow of Light scouts. You can make a choice as to what they want to wear. The one thing, and so these are the program updates. These program updates do not supersede anything in the Guide to Safe Scouting, Youth Protection, or NCAP standards. So, but we'll be talking a little bit more about some updates to the Guide to Safe Scouting in regards to Webelos and Arrow of Light and Cub Scout camping as well. All right. And all of this was done in collaboration with the National Scouts BSA Committee. So they talked to each other to make sure that anything in the Arrow of Light rank would not have to be duplicated once scouts crossed over into a troop and were earning their scout rank. So what you'll find is the scout rank requirements in Scouts BSA are listed in the new Arrow of Light handbook, just really for information. And none of those, so that scouts and leaders and parents can see it and be like, that's cool. Yeah, I want to go do that, of course. But there is no duplication of requirements between the two. So the goal is then to have our Arrow of Light Cub Scouts cross over into a Scouts BSA troop in January or February, around that time. So the program is designed to prepare them, those fifth graders, to learn about Scouts BSA, to start learning some of those skills, and then cross over to a troop in the winter, early spring. All right, so you'll see here then that the Arrow of Light requirements, they have six required electives and six required adventures, sorry, and 2 elective adventures, just like everyone else. And so again, none of those are going to be duplicated between Webelos and Arrow of Light anymore, and they will have separate books. So I'm going to click on the Arrow of Light. One I want to bring your attention to. So you'll see Arrow of Light are going to do Bobcat, but their Bobcat requirements are different and are nothing like the old Cub Scout Bobcat rank. And the Arrow of Light the Bobcat Arrow of Light adventure has a requirement for those Arrow of Light scouts to go visit a troop right away. So if you are someone at the district level, or if you also are in a troop, I want you to please remind your Scouts BSA troops that they actually need to start giving our Arrow of Light scouts opportunities to come visit them immediately, because it is the first adventure that we want these scouts to complete. And one of the requirements of the Bobcat adventure for the Arrow of Light rank is to go to a troop meeting. And I know troop meetings are open to anyone, anytime, but if you can extend a welcome and extend an invitation and welcome those scouts, I think it just goes better for everyone. All right, so the one I want to bring your attention to is the outdoor adventurer. Here in the Midwest, we know that we want to get all of our outdoor requirements for any of these adventures done right away. At least that's the way I've always done it in Cub Scouts, because you don't want to have to be waiting on a good spring day, which sometimes never comes, and be waiting on that one last thing to earn your rank, right? So I always encourage Cub Scout leaders, look at all of the requirements and get anything that requires you to do anything outdoors, get it done sooner rather than later while it's still light out and it's still, pretty moderate weather-wise, right? Because pretty soon here, the sun's going to be setting way too early for any of us, and we won't be able to go on a hike in the evening or those types of things. But the one in particular, because we're talking about Arrow of Light, is the outdoor adventurer requirement. All right, are you guys able to see what is it showing my webpage? I hope it is. All right.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So when I click on this, I'm going to go through some of these pages on the the BSA website in a little bit. But when I click on this, it takes me to the outdoor adventurer adventure, which is required for our Arrow of Light fifth graders. So there's lots of information here. You know, as we're always focused on safety, that's number one priority is safety. So there's tons of safety information right here at the beginning. And I'm going to keep scrolling. And it even tells you Baloo training, hazardous weather safety moment, guide to safe scouting, all these things that for safety that we need to think about. But I'm going to scroll down just to make sure that everyone knows about requirement number 5. So right there in the middle of the page, with your patrol, meaning your Arrow of Light patrol, or a Scouts BSA troop, participate in a campout. Now, this is a new updated requirement. In the past, all you had to do was do an outdoor activity. You didn't necessarily have to go camping as an Arrow of Light Scout to earn your rank. Now, this is a requirement because, again, we are preparing these Cub Scouts to cross over to Scouts BSA. And in Scouts BSA, for those of you familiar with that program, if you don't camp, you will not advance. You have to go camping. And so we want to prepare our Cub Scouts for that camping experience. So they may camp with just their den/patrol, or they may join a Scouts BSA troop for that camp out. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's scroll back up to some of these safety things. Right here, when camping, Baloo training is mandatory for a minimum of 1 adult on a pack or an Arrow of Light den campout. Baloo training is, for those of you who have taken it, you know what it is, but it has an online component and then an overnight on-hands practical part of the training. It teaches Cub Scout level camping policies, along with lots and lots of other good information. So that that is one thing that we all need to be aware of, is that in order even just to take your Arrow of Light den camping, even if you're going with the Scouts BSA troop, all Cub Scout camping guidelines apply. Being 2 registered leaders, make sure you have a female if you're taking a female scout with you, and then one of those must have Baloo training. So what are we going to do about that? Because now we have a Cub Scout camping policy update that helps, helps us fall in line with that requirement, right? So now that Arrow of Light Scouts have to go camping, let's update our camping policy so it's all there. So effective August 1st, the Cub Scout camping policies have been updated in the Guide to Safe Scouting. They were made to reflect these program updates. And so if you haven't already familiarized yourself with where to find the Guide to Safe Scouting, literally, I just type Guide to Safe Scouting in Google, and it's the first hit. But what you want to do is we're going to look at those camping requirements and what that means. Let's see, let's move something. There was also, in case you didn't know, another update that was effective last fall, September 1st, 2023, that was also important as to who can actually go camping with Cub Scouts. So if you weren't even aware of that one, I really encourage you to go back and look at that. So the guidance that's marked with an asterisk shows us the things that were updated most recently. So I would suggest that you go and read this, and so you can see all of the guidelines and how they affect, oh, look at that, Webelos and Arrow of Light camping, and what these all mean. So I'm going to go back to my slide though, because I kind of summarized. These changes include a separation of policies for Webelos dens versus Arrow of Light dens or patrols. So remember, we're now separating them. Webelos are Cub Scouts. They are not going to visit troops. They are not going camping with troops. So the rules for them are changing. So for example, Webelos can no longer attend camporees as day visitors. And they can still camp as a den. Okay, so they just can't go along with Scouts BSA troop. They can still camp as a den, following all of the youth protection, the Guide to Safe Scouting policies, having a Baloo trained leaders, etc. Now, for Arrow of Light Scouts, they can still go camping as a den. and a patrol, whatever you want to call yourselves. But they now may camp overnight as a camporee, not just as day visitors. So it used to be that Cub Scout level scouts could not camp at a camporee at all. Now that has changed, and they may attend a district or council camporee. Okay. Note, these policy changes do not reflect any changes to the barriers or to abuse, other youth protection, other guide to safe scouting things. I'm gonna exit out of that a minute and go back to let's see. There it goes. All right, back to my camping here. The other thing to note is I mentioned that September 1st, 2023, some camping policies were changed. Also for Cub Scouts. So I just want to make sure that is clear here. Cub Scout youth, let's see, oh, you know what? It's in a different section. But basically what it says is that the only adults who are allowed to camp with Cub Scouts are anyone who is a registered leader in their pack and their parents or legal guardians. So if Grandpa Steve wanted to come along on a pack camp out or thought it would be fun, to go when the Arrow of Lights go with the troop, that is not allowed unless Grandpa Steve is a registered leader with the pack. The other thing to note is that when a Arrow of Light Den or patrol goes on a Scouts BSA camp out, all Cub Scout camping policies apply. So that means that the pack then must supply 2 registered leaders for that Arrow of Light Den, and one of those leaders must be Blue trained. Now, if you are registered in both a pack and a troop, and that pack that you're registered in is camping with that troop, you may only count for one of those units. So let's say I'm registered in a pack and a troop. Let's say that the Arrow of Lights from my pack are going on a camp out with my troop. What that means is there must be a minimum of 4 adults present, 2 who are leaders in the troop and 2 who are leaders in the pack. So if I'm counting as leaders in the pack, I cannot count over here as a leader with the troop. So if they need a female or they need a Blue trained person, I can only count for the pack's female or Blue trained person. I can't be the pack's Blue trained person and then the troop's female. All right. So make sure that you have distinct leadership and when your AOL den is going camping with a troop. All right. So what then? You're going, I need some Blue trained leaders real fast. So Blue training is coming up. You have 3 opportunities this fall to get some AOL leaders trained. The first one, I put August 25 to 25. That's obviously not correct. But Three Fires Council is holding a training at Camp Big Timber in Elgin. I did check yesterday and that registration is closed. But I would say if that's the only date that works for you, give them a jingle and see if they can squeeze you in. Pathway to Adventure has Blue training coming up October 5 and 6 at Camp Palos in Lamont. That registration is open, so you can get folks signed up for that. And then Rainbow Council is holding their Blue training October 12 to 13 at Rainbow Scout Reservation in Morris. So make sure that you talk to your pack leadership so that they know that this is required. And I would really, really, really encourage any packs right now. Obviously, most important is to make sure our AOL scouts have a Blue trained person with them when they go camping this fall, hopefully this fall right away. But I would also really, really encourage packs to send your bear and your Webelos leaders like this fall, if possible, so that we're not behind the 8 ball, right? When it comes time for those Webelos, for those scouts when they become Arrow of Light. I know that PTAC and Rainbow Council also do a spring Blue, so I'm sure those dates will come later if they're not already on the calendar. I didn't look for those. But just, it's going to be even more important to get our pack leaders to balloon training with regularity and not just have, oh, we have 1 or 2 people in the pack who are trained so that when we go on our pack campouts, we're covered. That's not going to work anymore. We need to get more people trained to make sure all of our scouts can access the program safely and effectively. And get everyone out there. So, all right, I'm going to take a break because I just went over all of that. I'm terrible with technology, so just, there we go. I had to hit that, not stop my presentation. All right, any question so far on the Arrow of Light and Webelos distinction, any of the new guidelines? I mean, I kind of glossed over them, so I really want you guys to go look at the Guide to Safe Scouting on Cub Scout camping requirements and those new updates. But any questions on that so far?
I don't have any questions, Deb, but I'm glad that you brought up the camping. I did not realize that they have to camp with a troop
Yeah.
as one of the requirements. When we had discussed earlier about things for the BSA troop, they had only talked about the fact that they had to visit, and they wanted us to make sure we had visiting open for September, October.
Yeah, and Juanita, the camping requirement, they can just camp as a den, but wouldn't it be more fun to go with a troop? I mean, come on.
Especially
Right?
if you've got just 2 or 3 AOLs.
Right. Right. And then they can really see like, wow, they get to cook their own food and do their own thing. This looks pretty fun. Yeah. So if troops can make that happen, and I've been trying to spread the word, but we all do our best. So if troops can make that happen, where the Arrow of Light Scouts can come on a camp out with them in September, October, I mean, even November, depending on, what all the troops are up to. But I just think about weather and Cub Scouts, right? So, that would be wonderful if we can get those guys out there. So. All right. Any other questions or comments about the Webelos and Arrow of Light? And if you think of something, pop it in the chat. I'll try to keep popping back to the chat to see. Like I said, I'm not the greatest at all this technology. But I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and move on to the next part. Let's see, where did it go? Yes, that's the one. I don't know how I got all the way back to this page. All right, let's go back to where we were. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we are. All right. So one of the things I mentioned was that a big part of the update was to make some common activities across ranks. And why is this important? Because what we want to do is streamline, right? So I'm just pulling up all of this again, just to kind of, get the visual. We see here with these 6 required adventures, they all center around common themes. So like if your pack has a hiking program, for example, all of those outdoor adventures are going to be fulfilled in your pack program, right? Now, for the Lions, of course, their mileage is different than the Arrow of Light Scouts, who have to go on a 2-mile walk. But what you can do is you can even center some of your pack programming around some of this, and it's especially relevant in some of the electives. So those of you who have been around a while and kind of familiar with all the Cub Scout electives, you may remember that the only rank that had a fishing elective before was the Bears. Now every rank has a fishing elective, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself because it's probably on the next slide. But the other reason why there are common activities across ranks is, I kind of mentioned it before, for smaller packs, you sometimes don't have enough scouts to fill out a whole den and kind of make it enjoyable and feasible to kind of do some of the activities. So when you have common activities across the ranks, common adventures, you can combine dens a bit more easily. And it just kind of depends on the makeup of your pack, whether you're combining lions and tigers, or tigers and wolves, or wolves and bears, or bears and Webelos. Obviously, given what we've talked about with Webelos and Arrow of Light, you're never going to combine anything with Arrow of Light because their whole program has a different focus. But any of the other ranks can be combined into one den, and it would still be very easy then for the den leader to work together and meet everyone's requirements. Much easier than it was before when you would try to combine a den. So, here's the example of the outdoor ones, right? The lions just have to walk outside for 20 minutes. The tigers walk outside for 20 minutes, wolves, 30 minutes, bears, 1 mile, webelos, 2 miles, right? So it's age and developmentally appropriate for those scouts, but they center around the same type of activity. We're going out, we're walking, we're enjoying the outdoors, we're exploring our environment, we're noticing things, we're using our Cub Scout 6 essentials. So if you combine your wolves and your bears, well, you're going to go on a 1 mile hike, right? That's going to take you probably at least 30 minutes with wolves and bears anyway. So then you meet both of the requirements. You're all looking at animals and in your surroundings. You're discussing leave no trace. It works for all of those scouts together. And then here's some other adventures that are based on, for all ranks, that are based on common activities, some of which you may already do. So now when you hold your Pinewood Derby every year, there is now an adventure that every rank can earn. I mentioned the fishing. See, I told you I was getting ahead of myself. Now every rank has a fishing adventure. Now every rank has a cycling adventure. So if you hold like a bike rodeo or a bike ride or anything like that, everyone can earn a cycling adventure. Everyone can earn something with camping, and everyone can earn, there's the Champions for Nature, which is the conservation. So you can still do those projects, and then everyone can earn something by doing it. All right. And then the STEM adventure. So as I mentioned, the NOVA program was discontinued by the national office, and those topics have been integrated into our adventure program. So now every rank has a science adventure. Every rank has a technology adventure. Every rank has an engineering adventure. Everyone has a math adventure. So what this means is some of them that are in italics, those were already adventures in the previous program. Everything in bold is brand new. So every rank got some technology added, and then the rest were kind of balanced out so that everyone could have those subjects. All right. So I'm going to stop again. I see there's a question in the chat. Can this presentation be printed out? This is a Google slide presentation, Jim. I'm going to share the link with y'all before we leave so that you can look at it and download it yourself. Yes. So I will make sure I share it, especially because
that's good, because I have some den leaders, self included, who sometimes don't have the patience to watch things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I will make sure I share that.
And it's a good reference.
Right.
Right.
Good stuff to look back on.
Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And at the end, I have a few slides that have a ton of links too. So if I share the slide presentation with you, then you can click through and look at them on your computer later, so that you have access to all of that as well. So,
Great.
yeah. All right. So that was all.
Debbie,
Yep.
Before you go on, one of the ones that you have on your slide, but you didn't mention it, was swimming.
Yes.
I highly encourage you, MCA, swim as Cub Scouts, so that when they come Boy Scouts or Scouts BSA, they're not because they don't know how to swim. And please, people, take your Cub Scouts swimming. Even if it's just a play date, get them in the water.
No, and that's a really great suggestion, Juanita. Thank you. So there were some swimming and boating adventures added. And with swimming and boating, comes safety requirements. So please make sure that before you do any of those, that all of your leaders take safe swim defense and safety afloat. Those are the 2 online trainings that are required. And then like Juanita said, when a scout moves into Scouts BSA, there are swimming requirements. You have to pass the BSA swim test in order to move ahead in rank. I forget exactly which rank it's required for, but it is necessary. And, you know, anytime, if we're having scouts cross over, right, in January, February, they're joining a
ranks, yeah.
troop. Yeah, they're joining a troop in time to sign up to go to summer camp. And then when you get to summer camp, or maybe before summer camp, depending, different troops do it different ways, there is a swimming test required. The swim test is required, depending on some of the merit badges they might want to do. And that can be really difficult for some scouts, and some scouts are sometimes embarrassed because at camp a lot, at Scouts BSA camp, for those who haven't gone, and you know, that's usually done like in front of your whole troop. You're kind of all together doing it. And so sometimes that can be embarrassing for a scout who doesn't swim, or doesn't, you know, hasn't had that experience. So actually passing the swim test is required to paddle in a canoe or a kayak. So if you're going, your pack is going to do those paddling adventures, which are electives, they have to pass the test anyway. So if you have any more questions about that, please reach out to your assigned unit commissioner, and they can help, because it's a lot to get into when I want to keep this weeknight presentation kind of succinct. But please read the Guide to Safe Scouting, read those adventures, and if you have questions, I'll have my contact info at the end, or reach out to your assigned unit commissioner. And if you don't know who that is, reach out to your district commissioner or your DE. They can help you, and just kind of help you walk through some of that too. So thank you, Juanita, for bringing that up. All right, then I'm going to move on. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. There we go. We were looking at STEM. So I'm going to just go back. So swimming. So there they are. I just kind of went right over them. But yeah, now every rank does have a swimming adventure. And they're also, if I go all the way back to the electives list, there are some paddling adventures. Pause for water, spirit of the water, paddle onward, paddle craft. So there are some of those. So just so you're aware, those that have other safety requirements, training requirements, those are a great time to call on your friends in a troop, because they have a little bit more experience with that, because they do more of those activities as well. All right, sorry, I'm going to jump back ahead to where we were. All right, Den Leader resources. So everyone's wondering, where are the new Den Leader books? There are none. All of the adventures and all of the resources for Den Leaders are online on scouting.org. So I'm going to click on my Den Leader resources here and scroll down. So you can see everything is now available to everybody. Nothing is behind a login or a password or a paywall. No one has to buy a book, and no one, and you can access this anywhere, anytime from your computer or your phone. And so what this does is it allows anyone, not just the Den Leader, to help out with a Den meeting. So like I was just saying, like, hey, call upon your troop friends to help you with some of these swimming and paddling things. Now you can actually very easily share all of this Cub Scout adventure information with them just by sharing a link from the website. So here on the Den Leader resources page, what you'll find is some basic information, you know, kind of hyping you up. Conducting a Den meeting, preparing for a Den meeting, the parts of a Den meeting for anyone who's, you know, brand new and kind of like, what am I doing? All right, after the meeting. And then here what we have is we have resources for every rank. And so what you'll see now is these are the covers of the front of the new handbooks. And so it says very clearly, Lion. And in the top right, it has their grade level, right? Because in Cub Scouts, rank is your grade. It's your grade in school. And even here underneath the image of the lion book, it says kindergarten. Kindergartners are lions, period. First graders are tigers, period. And on the front of the book, there's a spot for their name, and that is for every rank. Thank you, Cub Scout National Committee. Because when I was a den leader, what I would do is I would bring a very large Sharpie to my first den meeting, and I would make everyone write their name across the front of the book, because no one wants to pick up a book and look inside to see whose it is. Just pick it up, look at the front of it. Who does it belong to? So it can go home with the right scout. So all of the ranks are here. And all you have to do, what rank do we want to be today? Let's be wolves. All right, so I'm going to click on Wolf Resources. There we go. And what it's going to show me are some more resources, right? We have our handbook. We have a step-by-step den leader guide, right? Just some simple steps for getting started, like take the position training. And then here we are, we have a link to all of the adventures. So if I click on the Wolf Den Meeting resources right here, this is now all I need to plan my den meetings. And so I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look at all the required adventures. So this is what's required. Remember I said Bobcat, that should be first when the den starts meeting. So that is there. And then the other 5 required are below that. And then all of our electives are down here. So remember, they just have to do 2 electives, or they can complete as many as they wish. So what you'll find is that these adventures have now been streamlined so that they can be done generally be done in one den meeting. There we go. So let's look at running with the pack, for example. So this is one about personal fitness. So once again, it's giving us a snapshot. It's giving us our safety information that we need to consider. And then it's, just giving us some information and some other resources. So here's the requirements. So if you remember before in Cub Scouting, it would often say, do requirements 1 and 2, and then choose 2 from requirements 3 through 7. Now that's just confusing for leaders and for parents, right? So now it's streamlined. There is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no choosing. There's no figuring it out. There's no guessing. And so what we have here is just these 5 requirements. And then as we scroll down, it's going to give us some options for completing that requirement. So here for requirement number 1, sample 3 foods that are naturally 3 different colors. And so it has kind of this activity card, and these icons here show us, is this going to be an indoor or outdoor activity? How much energy is it going to require from my scouts? Like, is this a low key thing, or is this going to be a high energy thing, just so I can be prepared? How much prep is involved? And then how much time is it going to take? And so if I click on this, it will show me, what's required. So it's indoor, and here's the adventure key. Meeting space, the energy, the supply list, the supplies, right? And how much prep, right? So is this like, I can just grab a few pencils and I'm good, or do I need to make like 5 trips to Home Depot? So you can know kind of what you need to put into this and how scouts are gonna respond. And so all of the information is there. Now, for a few others, here for requirement number 2, demonstrate the proper way to brush your teeth, you have 3 different options, and they each require a different amount of, indoor, outdoor prep, supplies, energy. So you can just decide what's going to work best for you in your den. Now, the beauty of this is, is that you can click on this, and you can just copy this URL, and you can ask a parent, hey, would anyone be willing to lead requirement 2? Here's the link. Choose one of those activities and be prepared to lead that next week, Tuesday, right? So this is a way to get everyone involved. Or maybe it's Tuesday, it's your den meeting night, and you woke up this morning and you just do not feel well. You cannot make it to your den meeting tonight, but you don't want to let the kids down. They're all planning on being there. So that's when you text your Cub Master and you're like, hey, I need you to cover for me tonight. Or you know, text, your assistant den leader, and you say, can you cover requirement 2? And then they can just log on and look at requirement 2. And which one are they going to choose? Well, they're going to choose clean chompers, because look at that. The prep number 1. Whereas you might have planned tooth experts because you already prepped for all of this, but they're filling in at the last minute. So now here's something they can do really quick at the last minute without needing a ton of prep. Now, these are just 3 suggestions to fulfill this requirement. If you decide to do something else completely, that is okay too, right? The basic is the idea here is to meet the requirement. And here's our activities that can help you do that. All right, so let's go back. All right, so completing the requirements is required. How you do it is not required. So for every requirement, for every rank, there are usually multiple activities. And so one of the reasons why they didn't print a guidebook is because there are 1,500 separate URLs, like web pages with all of the ideas to complete these activities. And so it would be impossible to print a book with all of that. So I just kind of showed you what the activity cards mean. I talked about the handbooks. And the other thing is, in the new handbooks, what you will find also are these QR codes at the bottom of the page. And what the QR code has is, will take you basically to that page with the requirements, so that, if you have the scout book, or let's say a scout missed your den meeting and you tell the parent, like, hey, need you guys to complete this at home, the parent can literally just scan the QR code and be taken to the requirements for that page as well. All right. And here's what I love about all of this. And Jim, this kind of ties in to what you were asking before earlier. Den leaders don't have to do everything. Whereas before, when the den leaders were the only ones privy, like we had the book and like we were the only ones who could plan this meeting. You don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to do it that way anymore. Who else can help lead a den meeting? Parents, Cub Masters, committee members, your denner, especially if you're Webelos AOL with your older scouts and you have a denner, your den chief. You can send them like, hey, here, can you lead this? Scouts, BSA scouts from your local troops. I remember when my son was a bear, one of the requirements, and I haven't looked close enough to see where it is in there, was to set up a tent. And I was like, you know what? I'm calling my local troop. So I called up my local troop. I said, hey, can your leader and a few scouts come over, bring a few tents, show my Cub Scouts what to do? And they did. And we had three older scouts and show up. And I think that was one of my den's most fun den meetings ever. But I didn't have to do it, right? I didn't have to do it all. Scouts BSA leaders, community members. So even when I was showing you things about brushing your teeth, I'm thinking, do I know a dentist who could come talk to them? Who could I call about that, right? So just because those activities are in there as a suggestion doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do. And then district leaders. So I'm a unit commissioner, and if one of my PACs called me and was like, right, that when I was like, ooh, the den leader was sick today, who can I call? If they called me and it worked for me, I would come, and I would know all I had to do was look at the website to be able to do that. Community resources. There's so many community resources out there that our den leaders and our PAC leaders can monopolize to help teach our Cub Scouts as well, right? Our first responders, that's a no-brainer. Your police department, your fire department, your local EMS companies, they will all come out. Here, I live in Tinley Park, and the fire department and the police department will have us at their stations anytime we want. There's now a fishing, as I mentioned, a fishing adventure for, oh man, I told you I was bad at this technology. There's now a fishing adventure for every rank. Find your local fishing store. In Tinley Park, there's 2, and they work with us. There's other fishing organizations, right? Like kind of sportsmen's organizations. I know in Pathway to Adventure, there's, I forget the organization that's doing it, and it's Scouts BSA, but they're doing merit badge classes. But you could always call them and be like, hey, can you come teach my Cub Scouts too? Can we, what can we do? Park District, YMCA, that's where you can do some swimming. In my town, our Park District has an indoor pool, and so we're able to use that for some of the swimming things. Nature centers are, Forest Preserve District of Cook County is amazing, and they have amazing nature centers. Here down in my area, there's the Lake Catherine Preserve. It's a private preserve, but they offer classes for Cub Scouts. Pilcher Park in Joliet offers classes for Cub Scouts where there's just a nominal fee, but they will teach your den like the entire adventure, so you don't have to. And it's a good use of, some funds and just, being connected to some local resources there. Bike shops. So I mentioned there's now a cycling adventure for every rank. That's a really great way to engage your local bike shops. There's an amazing bike shop in Homewood, for those of you kind of in that area, called, I forget the name of it. It's Good Speed. Jim, do you know? But the bike shop in Homewood, but you may all have a local bike shop near you, that you could have them come out or bring your den to their store and get, kind of an overview there. And then of course your VFW, your American Legion, those types of organizations are always happy to come over and teach your scouts about flag ceremonies, flag code, proper care of the flag. And so there's lots of ways to be able to engage other people, to share these den leader resources with other people so that the den leader does not have to do it all. And so that they're not burned out, so they're not overwhelmed. Because at the core, Cub Scouts is a family activity. And so we want to, engage everybody there. So, all right, I'm stopping that share real quick just to check in with everybody. Any questions about any of that stuff, about the den leader resources, the online resources, how we can engage other people, any of that stuff? No? Okay, cool. And I know, Jim said, can this presentation be printed out, and now we're looking at all online den leader resources. Those can be printed out too. I know for some people it's hard not to have the book, but for those of you who've been around a while, I remember planning den meetings, like having my big den leader book out, and then I had this other book of ideas out, and then I had this book out, and I couldn't take it on the road with me, right? And what's the research showed, so when the National Cub Scout Committee planned these program updates, they did a ton of research. They surveyed families, they surveyed leaders. What the research shows, though, is most people are doing their planning and finding resources on their computers and their phones now, right? So let's say and the other part of this is many more parents now work full time versus when some of those other materials were created. And so, like, for me, I work full time, and if I'm leading a den, I might want to do some planning during my lunch break. And it's really easy for me to sit at my desk and be on my laptop, eat my lunch, plan my den meeting. But if I had to eat my lunch and have 3 binders all over my desk, that might be a different story, and it wouldn't be as easy for me. And so, so we've got to stay current, we've got to stay relevant, and this is just one way that we can help the Cub Scouting program stay current and relevant. All right, last few things. There's been, just talking kind of about resources. Cub Chat Live, for those of you who don't know, is put on by the National Cub Scout Committee every Friday at 2 p.m. It is recorded on Facebook and on YouTube. And all of these program updates were all addressed in Cub Chat Live. So you can look for their playlist on YouTube. They've had lots more since then. I only kind of went through May, kind of some of the main topics that they addressed. They have, obviously they do it every Friday, and they have lots of other topics too. Like one of the topics was, planning summertime activities and just other things that weren't just about the program update. So those are all there. And then I wanted to point out, while we're all prepping for the new Cub Scout year, one of the things we really need to be mindful of is our scouts with special needs. And so the National Scouts BSA has the special needs scouting, that is one of the national committees, is special needs scouting, and our council has a special needs scouting community. So Pathway to Adventure Council has a special needs scouting committee. Colleen Leahy and Brenda, I'm forgetting her last name, are the chair people of that committee. This will link you to their Facebook page. Each district also has a special needs scouting champion. And so if there's anybody in your pack, in your troop, in any scout you know, any leader you know who is struggling to help that scout advance in the program, is struggling to meet the needs of that scout, struggling to figure out how they can, you know, just help that scout participate in scouting, please reach out to your district special needs scouting champion. Every district should have one. If you don't know who it is, again, reach out to your unit commissioner, your district chair, your DE. You can find out who it is so that we can help support those scouts who also deserve a quality scouting program. There is a website called Able Scouts, which has an inclusion toolbox with lots and lots and lots of tips on how you can include scouts with special needs. There's also a Facebook group called No Scout Left Behind, where people talk about special needs scouting every day, have questions, comments, feedback, and help. You know, the thing is that scouts with special needs, most of their disabilities are invisible. And the more we can know, the more we can make accommodations, the more we can be understanding and mindful and gracious, the better experience we can make for every scout who wants to take part in scouting. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that these support people, that these you know, resources exist so that we can help all of those scouts. The number one, I was talking with Colleen, the number one question people actually have about special needs is usually advancement related. What do we do for advancement? And in Cub Scouts, the motto is do your best. And that is the guideline for Cub Scout advancement. When you get into Scouts BSA, we have some other things to talk about in terms of special needs scouting, but in Cub Scouts, it's do your best. So just keep that in mind. All right, and then I have all these other helpful links. Like I said, I'm going to share the link to this presentation. So there's some updates, FAQs, another video about the transition to Scouts BSA. So if you hang out in that world, that might be helpful for you. Cub Scout Leader Book is a must for pack leaders to look at. It explains kind of the whole structure and methods of Cub Scouting. Guide to Safe Scouting, we kind of talked about camping and safety afloat types of guidelines that are going to be really important for Cub Scout leaders to pay attention to now. Age-appropriate guidelines for scouting activities, and then a couple links with some den meeting plans, adventure info, program planning put together by other councils that might be helpful for you and your pack, your units, as they kind of delve into this new realm with the program updates. So I will put the link to this presentation so that you can access all of those helpful links, take a look at them, share them with whoever you need to share them with, and look over them yourself so you can refer people to them as needed. Like I mentioned, we're going to have one more webinar in October, so make sure you sign up for that. And then here's my information. Like I said, I'm a unit commissioner here down in the Calumet district. I've been involved in Cub Scouting since 2010. My info is there so that you can contact me if you would like. And that is the last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing that because I'm going to get the link for you. But any other questions, comments, feedback, ideas that we did not go over?
Is the next webinar going to be different than this one?
It absolutely is, Jim. Thank you for asking that. Because once the next webinar is, so the one we did back in May was like a complete explanation of the program update that didn't go as into depth as I did today, especially on like Webelos and Arrow of Light and the camping stuff. Today, we wanted to touch these important things so that, you know, everyone was clear about Webelos and Arrow of Light, some of the safety considerations and the training needs. And then the next one will be in October when Cub Scout leaders will have had the chance to put this into practice for about 2 months and see what's working, what's not, what are some tips and tricks, you know, that some folks have figured out. And that's actually hopefully going to be led by someone who is currently an active Cub Scout leader. And so and we'll be, asking for feedback from Cub Scout leaders so that we can provide the best information possible. So yeah, the October one will be a different presentation. And maybe even a different person.
Thanks for doing this, Deb.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. So I did put the link to my Google Slides in the chat. So make sure you click on that before we close out here so that you have it. And then
I have a question, Deb. On
Yep.
camping.
Yep,
Oh, did I die?
I can hear you.
Uh,
Oh, she's kind of going in and out.
So am I.
AOL Scout, who is it? Single scout, and this is the one that gets weird.
All right, Juanita's cutting in and out, so I'm not I didn't quite catch her question. Juanita, if you can hear me, maybe you can put it in the chat.
We have the dad
Yes.
daughter.
All right, I'm not sure what Juanita's question was, but I'm gathering there's some questions about dads camping with daughters. And if that is in fact the question, I don't know answers and guidelines off the top of my head. That would be something we would need to look at more closely, the Guide to Safe Scouting, and investigate that. Because I know that's kind of a situation that needs looking at.
Hey, Deb,
Yeah.
your link requires access.
Oh, that's my bad. Let me fix that.
I mean, it let me request it, but I don't know that you want to get a million emails of people requesting access.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I just changed it to anyone with the link. So if you click on it again, it should work. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me know. That was the
Now
thing.
it works.
Yay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great
Like
job.
it was me.
All
Thank you
right.
for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, make sure you click on the link for the presentation and it should open for you now. And then if you have any questions, feel free to email me or text me. That's my cell phone number. And then yeah, it looks like Juanita is looks like she left. So I don't know. She's having connectivity issues. So I'm not sure what her question was. But for all things, camping related, read the Guide to Safe Scouting, see if you can find your answers in there. And when in doubt, always call your assigned unit commissioner, your district chair, your DE, and hopefully we can all work together to kind of figure all of this out in this new era. So, all right. But happy scouting. It's very exciting time as Cub Scout packs are busy recruiting and getting restarted for the fall, and as troops kind of regroup after a busy summer. So happy scouting. And if there's no other questions or comments or anything else, then I think we can end the meeting.
Good night.
Thank you,
All right.
Dave.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.